I could still smell the hospital when she threw me out. 3 days after my son's funeral, my daughter-in-law looked me in the eye and said, "The house is mine now." Her voice was cold, clean, without a single crack. I stood in the living room, staring at the vase filled with funeral flowers. Coffee still warm in my memory, the clock frozen at the hour Raphael slipped away. And there she was, changing the locks like someone renaming a street. She didn't wait for my boy's body to grow cold. Didn't wait for grief to settle. She told me to leave. Me, who spent 35 years caring for that home, rocking him to sleep, praying for his healing. Now I was treated like a stranger in my own house. The worst part wasn't the pain. It was her calm. The calm of someone who had planned it all before the death. While I was still trying to understand, she was already taking my photos off the wall. She tossed out my wedding picture. She tore up his portrait. In that moment, I learned some people don't cry from grief. They cry from relief. And her relief was seeing me gone. But what Bianca didn't know was that Raphael left something behind, something she never imagined. And what he wrote in silence would change everything. What she thought was the end would be only the beginning of my return. Hit like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me, have you ever been betrayed by someone in your own family? My name is Lucia Navarro. I'm 61, and for 30 of those years I believed a mother's love was enough to protect a child from anything. But love can be blind, and the world far too cruel for kindness standing alone. I worked my whole life as a nurse. I learned to tend to other people's pain, but no one ever taught me how to care for my own. Raphael was my only son, and everything beautiful in me seemed to live in him. He grew up in that house, playing under the mango tree in the yard, studying late, teasing me about how I kept the silverware facing up. When he became a teacher, I thought my work in this world was done. But fate doesn't ask permission to change the route. He met Bianca at the hospital. Pretty, young, with a smile that felt like light, and eyes I learned to read over time. At first, I saw tenderness. Later, I saw control. She was the kind of woman who spoke softly, but weighed every word. And Raphael, gentle as he was, believed what he heard. At the beginning, I tried to like her, and for a while I did. She called me mom, brought me flowers, told me I reminded her of her mother, who had died young. Maybe some of that was true, but her affection came with an expiration date. Soon after the wedding, the gestures changed. The visits shrank, her tone cooled. One day I noticed my photo had disappeared from the living room. When I asked, she smiled and said, "I'm redecorating." Raphael tried to mediate. "Mom, she means well. She just wants to organize things her way." But I knew. Organize was the pretty word she used for erase. When he got sick, she became the gatekeeper. She decided who could come in, what he ate, when I could see him, and I accepted it, thinking love could endure anything. But love that accepts humiliation turns into silence, and silence is a way of dying slowly. Still, Raphael always found a way to reach me. A note, a short message, a single phrase. "Mom, don't stay away." And those 3 words kept me alive when he was gone. The funeral took place on a cloudy, stifling morning. The air was heavy, the ground cold, the whole world silent. The scent of flowers mixed with disinfectant. Raphael looked too calm inside that coffin, and that calmness tore me apart. He always said silence made him uneasy, but now no sound on earth could reach him. Bianca cried. She cried a lot. But her tears had rhythm, almost rehearsed. She hugged everyone at the right time, wiped her face with precision, spoke softly. On the surface, grief. Underneath, haste. When the coffin was lowered, I stayed. Everyone else left, but I stayed. The sound of dirt hitting wood was something I would never forget. That sound would follow me for a long time, until another kind of justice made itself heard. I went back home alone, clutching the jacket he used to wear when the weather turned cold. I put the key in the lock. It didn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. The gate was locked too. The same gate I had opened for 35 years now denied me entry. I rang the bell. She opened the door, dry eyes, hair tied back. "What is it, Mrs. Lucia?" "The key won't work." "I changed the locks, for safety." "And why didn't you tell me?" "Because the house is mine now." Raphael wanted it that way. For a moment, I felt neither anger nor pain, just an empty coldness. He would never do that to me. "It's in my name. I can show you." "Show me." "It's not ready yet, but it will be." She closed the door calmly. No shouting, no guilt, just closed it. And I stood there, the sound of the door echoing through my chest. A neighbor came over, concerned. "Are you okay, Mrs. Lucia?" I nodded, but I wasn't. Nothing was. I walked to the little square. The wooden bench welcomed me as if it already knew my story. I looked up at the sky and asked God to let me feel my son one more time, but the wind was the only answer. That night, I slept at my neighbor Selena's house. She hugged me, covered me with an old sheet, and whispered, "Stay here as long as you need." I didn't cry. Not yet. The tears would come later, when silence turned to a blade. But before dawn, the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Navarro, this is Mr. Ottavio. I'm your son's attorney." The voice was firm, respectful. "I need to speak with you. It's important." I hung up, my heart racing. That man would be the first hand reaching out from the abyss. The days that followed felt endless. I woke up early, but there was no routine left to follow. The sound of the gate, the smell of coffee, the birds singing, everything reminded me of the house that was no longer mine. Donna Selena tried to comfort me. "Life has a way of setting itself right, Lucia, but life doesn't always set itself right. It changes shape." On the third day, the phone rang again. "Mrs. Navarro, this is Mr. Ottavio." His voice was calm but carried a quiet urgency. "Your son asked me to keep some documents for him. Can you come to my office tomorrow?" I agreed, without really understanding what he meant by documents. But something in the way he spoke gave me a flicker of hope. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went through my memories. Raphael smiling in the kitchen, playing guitar in the yard, writing at his desk. And Bianca, always nearby, with that look that never met you straight on. An old memory crossed my mind. The day she insisted on going with him to the notary's office, said it was to organize marriage paperwork. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Now the past was starting to smell like a plan. The next morning, I went to the office. Mr. Ottavio greeted me with quiet kindness. "Your son trusted you deeply, Mrs. Navarro." He opened a drawer and pulled out a brown envelope tied with a red ribbon. "He asked me to keep this for you. It should only be opened if something happened to him." A chill ran through me. He handed me the envelope. "Read it carefully, and don't show it to anyone. Yet." I went back to Selena's house holding that envelope against my chest. It took me hours to open it. When I finally did, I found a letter and a folded document. The handwriting was his. "My mother, if anything happens to me, know that the house remains yours. It always was. It's legally registered. Don't trust promises, trust papers." The tears came all at once, as if they had been waiting for permission. The attached document read, "Lifetime usufruct, Lucia Navarro, notarized, dated, signed." My son had protected me. Even sick, even tired, he had thought of me. I sat there reading every line over and over. Pain gave way to certainty. Bianca knew. She knew, and pretended not to. I showed the document to Donna Selena. She read it slowly, took a deep breath, and said, "God never fails, Lucia. He just waits for the right time to turn the page." But I wasn't looking for miracles. I wanted to understand what came next, because a paper can give you rights, but it doesn't give you back respect. That night, I kept the letter on my nightstand and fell asleep staring at the ceiling. The silence that once hurt now seemed to whisper, "Wait." The truth is waking up. And I waited. this time, unafraid of who I was. The next morning, I went back to Mr. Ottavio's office with the envelope in hand. The building was old, tall windows, the air filled with the scent of paper and fresh coffee. He greeted me with that same calm, respectful look. "Did you read the letter?" I did. He knew what was coming, didn't he, Doctor? He did, and he prepared for it. He placed a blue folder on the desk. "Here's the original deed. Your son registered the lifetime usufruct months before the marriage." He pulled out another paper. "And here, authentic signature, notarized and certified." My heart began to race. Then why did she say the house was in her name? Because she tried to change the document. He showed me copies of Bianca's requests, attempts to alter the ownership, different dates, questionable signatures. She submitted a false power of attorney, but the notary refused it. And Raphael knew? He did. That's when he asked me to keep the originals safe. That sentence cut deep. My son had foreseen his own absence and left me the only shield I would ever need. I walked out feeling something new. Strength. The air felt lighter, the sun warmer. I walked slowly to the bus stop, looking around. Everything was the same, but I was no longer the same woman who had been thrown out. Now, truth walked beside me. On the way back, I decided to pass by the house. The gate was locked, the windows shut, curtains changed. But inside, one room was still untouched, Raphael's room. And somehow, I knew it held more answers. I waited for Bianca's car to leave and slipped in through the side gate, the one she never knew opened from the inside. The house smelled of disinfectant and expensive perfume. Nothing there was mine, except the air I breathed. But when I reached his room, time stopped. The pillow still carried the shape of his head, the book on the desk open to the same page. I opened the drawer. Inside were receipts from lawyers, proof of fees, and a small envelope. Inside it, a note. "Mom, if I'm not around, go to Mr. Ottavio. He knows everything." I closed my eyes, tears burning. He knew she would try to erase me, and even then, he stayed silent, maybe to spare me early pain. I left the house slowly, the note in my pocket and peace in my heart. Across the street, Donna Selena was waiting, arms folded. "Did you find what you needed?" "I found what I was missing to understand. My son didn't trust her." "Then it's your turn now, Lucia." "My turn for what?" "To prove that those who try to erase a story end up as a footnote." That night, I wrote in my diary, "Today I learned that lies age, but truth never loses its face." I closed the notebook and slept, unafraid, for the first time. At last, silence was on my side. The next morning, I went back to Mr. Ottavio's office with the note I'd found in Raphael's drawer. He welcomed me with that same steady, compassionate look. "I knew this day would come, Mrs. Navarro. Your son was wiser than most give him credit for." I placed the note on his desk. "He left this for me." Ottavio read it silently and nodded. "It reinforces everything we already have. The house is yours, and she knew it." "What can we do now?" "First, we'll file an authenticated copy of the document. Then, we'll officially notify Bianca that she cannot take possession." I hesitated. "She's going to react." "She will. But the difference now is that you have the evidence." Ottavio leaned back in his chair, studying me quietly. "You know what impresses me, Mrs. Navarro? It's not your courage, it's the calm with which you carry it. When you've buried a child, Doctor, fear forgets your address." He smiled faintly, saying nothing. The silence between us was light, respectful. And for the first time since Raphael's death, I didn't feel alone. In the days that followed, he handled everything. Trips to the notary, meetings, calls. I went with him, learning what every legal term meant. It was like learning to walk again, cautious but firm. One afternoon, as we left the courthouse, he offered me a ride. On the way, he asked, "Why didn't you defend yourself sooner, Mrs. Navarro?" "Because I thought love was enough to hold on to what's ours." "And now?" Now I know love is strong, but it still needs a letterhead." He laughed, and so did I, though there was sadness in it. The truth is, no one should ever have to prove they deserve to stay where they've always belonged. Days later, the notice was delivered. Bianca showed up at the office, heel sharp, voice firm. "This is absurd. That house belonged to my husband." Without raising his tone, Ottavio replied, "It did, and it still does, by his will. The lifetime usufruct belongs to Mrs. Navarro. I won't accept this." "It's not a matter of acceptance, ma'am. It's the law." She looked at me, and for the first time I saw something beyond anger. I saw fear. The fear of someone realizing her castle of appearances was about to collapse. She left without another word. The door slammed, but inside me, there was only calm. Ottavio placed his hand on the table. Now comes the hardest part, which is waiting for her to make the mistake that will prove everything. And if she doesn't, every liar slips sooner or later. That night, I went back to Selena's house and looked at the document again. It wasn't just a piece of paper, it was my son's final act of love, and the first step toward my return. 2 days after the notice, Bianca showed up at Donatellina's gate. The sound of her heels on the pavement announced her before I even saw her. Anger rarely arrives quietly. I opened the door slowly. She was impeccable, hair neat, makeup flawless, too composed for someone still in mourning. "Come to take something else, Mrs. Navarro?" she asked, forcing a smile. "Only what's mine," she laughed, short, bitter. "Yours? The house is mine. Raphael gave it to me. He gave me what no one can take away, the right to stay." Her expression changed. "You're trying to take everything I have." "I haven't taken anything. I just refuse to be erased." For a moment, Bianca looked away. Her hand trembled, disguised by an unnecessary gesture to fix her necklace. "You don't understand what it's like to lose everything, Mrs. Navarro." "Yes, I do. I lost a son." That answer broke something inside her. Her face hardened. "You'll regret crossing me." "I didn't cross you, Bianca. I just stopped allowing it." We stood in silence for a few seconds. She was breathing heavily, trying to hold back her tears. "He promised me that house," she murmured, more to herself than to me. Promises made in desperation aren't worth the paper they're written on. Her eyes filled with tears, but rage came first. "You were always possessive. Raphael got sick from being trapped with you." Those words cut like glass, but I took a breath. "Be careful with what you say. Pain turns the mouth into a weapon, and one day everyone has to swallow their own shards." She stepped back, trying to compose herself. "Don't think this is over. I'll prove who's in control." Time's the only one in control, Bianca, and it's already picked a side. We stood face to face for a few seconds longer. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just looked at her, and silence did the rest. She turned and walked away. The echo of her heels faded down the street until it disappeared. And in that fading sound, I realized sometimes winning simply means not responding. I closed the door quietly. Selena appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "What was that?" Her pride came looking for rescue. "And what did you do?" I listened to what silence had to say. That night, I slept peacefully. Because for the first time, I understood that dignity has a sound of its own. The sound of a door closing without anger. After the confrontation, Bianca vanished for a few days. Her silence felt strategic, but I knew it well. People who live by manipulation can't survive without noise. While she disappeared, Mr. Ottavio worked nonstop. He spent hours at the courthouse, comparing dates, reviewing records, chasing documents. And one cloudy afternoon, he called. "Mrs. Navarro, I need you to come to the office. We found something important." When I arrived, a stack of papers lay across his desk. His expression was serious, voice firm. "You'll need to brace yourself." "For what?" Bianca was never legally married to Raphael. For a moment, I couldn't process the words. What do you mean? They lived together, but never completed the civil marriage. He started the process, but withdrew before signing. The news hit me like a gust of cold air. Ottavio continued, "That changes everything. She has no inheritance rights, no claim to the house." And she knew this? Most likely. That's why she tried to falsify a power of attorney right after his death. I sat down slowly. My head spun, my heart pounded. So, she threw me out of a house that was never hers. Exactly, and now we can prove it. I stayed quiet for a long time. I replayed every look she gave me, every soft-spoken lie at the funeral, every careful word wrapped in poison. Her rush to change the locks suddenly made sense. She wasn't just trying to get rid of me, she was trying to destroy the evidence. Ottavio handed me a folder. These are the records, her requests, the notary's rejections. Keep them safe. I held the documents like a shield. Do you think she'll try something else? Absolutely. People like her don't accept defeat. They'd rather destroy themselves trying to win. On the way home, the sky darkened. Lightning streaked across the horizon, the storm outside matching the one inside me. Donna Selina waited on the porch, her apron dusted with flour. And? We found everything. She was never a wife. Selina sighed deeply. Evil has short legs, Lucia, and an ego big enough to trip over them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the first time I saw Bianca in the hospital, her hand clutching Raphael's, her pity disguised as sweetness. Maybe she had loved him once, but her love ended the moment she realized mine couldn't be bought. The next day, I decided to visit the house. Not to fight, just to see what time had done to that place. The gate was half open. I walked in slowly. The garden was abandoned, flowers wilted, leaves scattered across the ground. The house looked like a body without a soul. Inside, the air was heavy, still, as if no one had breathed there for days. On the table lay an open black folder. Inside, a sheet of paper with notes in another lawyer's handwriting. At the bottom, one chilling line. Prove the mother's mental incapacity to nullify usufruct. I left trembling. Not from fear of a legal fight, but from the cruelty of the plan. She wanted to declare me incompetent, as if old age were a crime, as if love were an illness. I called Ottavio immediately. She's going to try to annul the usufruct, claiming I'm mentally unfit. I expected that. What do? We prove otherwise, with documents, medical reports, and, most of all, with your composure. Then it's time to stop crying and start acting. He smiled. And that's exactly why she'll never win. That night, I wrote again in my diary. When lies grow old, time starts to breathe truth through the cracks. And I could already feel that wind, softly, sneaking through the windows of my soul. After the discovery, time stopped running and started walking beside me. I carried that folder of documents everywhere, like a weapon loaded with justice. Ottavio said every page inside was a brick in the wall of my freedom. But I realized freedom also means having the courage to look back without breaking down. Over the next few days, I reviewed everything Raphael had left behind. Old folders, tax receipts, letters. Among them, I found a small blue flash drive. Ottavio plugged it into his computer, and there it was, Raphael's voice, shaky but clear. If anything happens, I want my mother to keep the house. Bianca's been different lately. She wants to control everything, even what she doesn't understand. But I trust Mr. Ottavio to handle it. Hearing his voice was like being held again. Ottavio looked at me. This is worth more than any signature. It's his intent, recorded and undeniable. And at that moment, I knew Bianca's fate was already sealed. Still, the process was slow. And as days passed, gossip began to spread. Bianca was telling neighbors that I was senile, inventing stories to justify my attachment. Some believed her, others just watched. Donna Selina became my first line of defense. If they want to call you old, let them. Better old and lucid than young and soulless. We laughed. but it was the kind of laughter you use as armor. Ottavio suggested a mental capacity exam to silence any doubts. I went to the clinic, answered every question, every test. When the results came back, he smiled. Here's the proof no one can deny. You're sharper than half the people running this country. I took the report and placed it next to Raphael's letter. It felt as if law and love were sitting side by side at my table. One afternoon, I got an unexpected call. It was the old janitor from the school where Raphael used to teach. Mrs. Navarro, I found some of his things in the staff room cabinet. I went there the same day. The cabinet was dusty, untouched for months. Inside, a small wooden box, photos, notebooks, and a bundle of letters. Among them, drafts Raphael had never sent. One read, "If I can't speak for myself one day, I want my mother to speak. She's the only one who truly knows who I am." I closed my eyes, tears falling freely. It was as if fate had sewn every thread so that, in the end, he would still be my voice. When I told Ottavio, he nodded. Now we have more than proof. We have coherence. What do we do with it? We keep it safe for the hearing. Lies collapse on their own when truth stands beside them. In the days leading up to court, Bianca tried reaching out. Short, manipulative messages. "Can we talk? You don't have to go this far. I'm hurting too." I read them all, but never replied. Forgiveness isn't an excuse, it's recognition. On the eve of the hearing, I sat on the porch with Selena. The wind carried the smell of rain and change. "Are you ready?" she asked. "I am, not to win, but not to stay silent." The next morning, I woke early. The mirror showed a woman aged by loss, but not defeated. Gray hair tied back, eyes steady, heart calm. I grabbed the document and the letter. Raphael would be with me, not in body, but in truth. Before leaving, I wrote in my diary, "Today, love will testify on my behalf." Then I closed the door, certain that the story was finally about to set itself right, not by force, but by a truth that had finally learned to breathe. The day of the hearing arrived. The courthouse smelled of coffee and tension. I sat in the waiting area with my folder on my lap, heart steady but awake, like a train about to depart. Ottavio arrived moments later, calm and focused. He adjusted his tie and said softly, "Today isn't about fighting, Lucia. It's about telling the truth." While we waited, a man in his 30s entered the room, visibly nervous. "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Navarro?" "Yes," I answered, surprised. "My name is Felipe. I used to teach with Raphael." His voice trembled. "I need to speak with your lawyer. I have something important." Ottavio took him to a private room. Minutes later, he returned, eyes wide with disbelief and relief. "Lucia, your son left a digital folder with him." "With Felipe?" "Yes. He kept it at the university for safekeeping." He didn't know what it contained until now. Ottavio opened his laptop and showed me the files. Inside was an unsent email Raphael had written to Bianca. "Bianca, stop trying to change the contract. I don't want my mother to lose the home where I grew up. She is my past, and you are my present. If you want peace, respect what I've built." Those words were a verdict on their own. Ottavio looked at me. "This removes all doubt about his intentions." Felipe nodded. "I'll testify. He trusted me." He told me everything that month before he passed. When we entered the courtroom, Bianca was already seated, pale, hands trembling, eyes avoiding mine. The judge called the case. Ottavio stood, presented the documents, and then requested a new witness. Felipe took the stand. His voice quivered at first, but grew firm with each sentence. He described the conversations, the fear Raphael had of being manipulated, the love he had for his mother. He said she was his anchor. That if something ever happened, she'd know what to do. Bianca kept her eyes down. The judge took notes in silence, every detail cutting deeper. When Felipe finished, the prosecutor spoke. "Your Honor, The evidence and testimony clearly demonstrate intent. The usufruct belongs to Mrs. Navarro, as per her son's wish. Bianca finally spoke, her voice cracking. "This is all a setup. He's lying." The judge raised his hand. "Enough. The evidence speaks louder than accusations." Then came the verdict. The property remains under the lifetime possession of Mrs. Lucia Navarro. The petitioner has no legal marriage to the deceased, and the request for annulment is hereby denied. The sound of the gavel echoed like a church bell. Ottavio turned to me, eyes shining. We did it, but I knew. It wasn't just a legal victory, it was a moral one. Outside, Felipe approached me. "I should have come sooner," he said, voice low. "The right time always finds us, my dear." He smiled faintly. "Raphael would be proud." "So am I," said. "He chose his friends well." On the drive home, the sun dipped below the horizon. I leaned my head against the window and whispered to myself, my son didn't have to be alive to defend me. He'd already done it, while he still breathed. And in that quiet, golden moment, I realized justice and love are made of the same thing, invisible, but impossible to destroy. The court's decision was published on a Friday morning. My name, Lucia Navarro, was printed right beside the words, "Lifetime possession confirmed." I read it over and over until the ink seemed to shine. Justice, at last, had an address. But peace never comes alone. That night, I heard loud knocking at the gate. When I looked out the window, Bianca was standing there, hair undone, face tense, eyes hollow, the look of someone who had just lost her last card to play. I opened the gate. "What are you doing here, Bianca?" "I need to talk." "About what?" "About everything you took from me." Her breathing was fast, her voice trembling. "You think you won because of a stamped paper? Raphael loved me. I deserved that house." "Love isn't property, Bianca. You always wanted him all to yourself." "I wanted him alive. You wanted him controlled." She stared at me, as if my calm hurt more than any insult could. "You hate me, don't you?" "No. I just learned that pity is a dangerous form of love." She stepped closer. "You think this is over? I can still destroy you." "Then go ahead. Just remember, whoever lights the fire first is the one who gets burned." The silence between us was heavy, stretching like a storm cloud. She looked around, the open gate, the flowers, the children laughing next door. "Do people really believe you?" "They don't have to. The truth doesn't need an audience." For a second, her face softened. The arrogance cracked. Her next words came out small, broken. "I just wanted to belong somewhere." "So you tried to steal mine?" She started crying, real tears this time, not the rehearsed ones from the funeral. "He promised he'd love me forever." And he did. But love isn't a deed you can sign over. She wiped her face, struggling to recover her pride. "You think you've won, but the world's cruel to women like us." "The world already was cruel to me, Bianca. Now it's just returning what it owes." As she turned to leave, an envelope slipped from her hand. I picked it up. Inside were bank statements under Raphael's name, large sums, obvious forgeries. The next morning, I showed them to Ottavio. He studied them carefully. "Fake. Poorly done. She's trying to rattle you." And she did try. Within days, rumors started spreading online. Greedy old woman. She used her son's name for money. Fake charity project. It was the kind of cruelty that doesn't shout, it slices. Selena fumed in the kitchen. "That's cowardice, Lucia." "No, Selena. That's desperation. When people run out of truth, they scream to hear their own echo." The following week, the judge issued a restraining order. Bianca was forbidden from approaching me or the property. When the officer handed me the document, I felt a strange kind of freedom, the kind that doesn't need celebration. I signed it quietly and said, "Thank you, doctor. For the first time, I can breathe." Ottavio smiled. Take a deep breath, Lucia. The hardest battle is over. The one against fear. That night, I sat on the porch with Selena. The wind swayed the mango tree, and for the first time in months, the sky was clear. She looked at me and said, "People like her don't lose to the law. They lose to themselves." I nodded. "Then let her find herself, Selena." And in that stillness, I understood. Revenge isn't shouting louder. It's standing tall when someone expected you to fall. The morning after the restraining order, sunlight poured through the windows as if the house itself had taken a deep breath. The light touched every wall, every memory that once hurt to see. Selena arrived early with fresh bread and coffee. "It's over now, Lucia." "No, Selena. Now it really begins." I sat at the table, looking out at the yard. The mango tree was full again, its shade spreading wide and calm. There, where my son once played, I decided what to do with what was left of my life. I didn't just want a house. I wanted meaning. I picked up the phone and called Ottavio. "Doctor, I want to do something in Raphael's name." "Something legal?" "Something lasting." He hesitated for a moment. "I'm listening." "I'm going to open the learning center he dreamed of, the one he wanted to run in the backyard." I remember him talking about that. "Then that's what I'll do. The School of Hope. Free classes, open to every child in this neighborhood." "That's not just justice," he said softly. "That's renewal." In the following days, the idea took shape. Selena rallied the neighbors. Ottavio handled the paperwork. And I, with my own hands, painted the walls, scrubbed the floors, planted new flowers. Each brushstroke erased a little of the pain. Bianca tried to fight back online. Cryptic posts, veiled accusations. But no one believed her anymore. Truth once witnessed becomes its own fortress. Within weeks, the center was ready. The first children arrived with worn backpacks and bright eyes. Their laughter filled every corner of the house. The silence of grief gave way to the sound of life. Ottavio brought Judge Borges to the opening ceremony. The man who had signed the restraining order smiled when he saw the yard full of children. "Few people can turn pain into purpose, Mrs. Navarro." "Pain is like fire, Judge. It burns, but it can also purify." Selena served cake and coffee. Mothers from the neighborhood brought flowers. Even those who once doubted stood there quietly, moved by what they saw. A woman who had rebuilt her life without bitterness, using only truth and work. During the celebration, I noticed a black car parked across the street. Windows tinted, engine off. It was Bianca. She didn't step out, just watched. Our eyes met for a second. There was no anger left in me, only pity, and perhaps inside her, the faint beginning of regret. When she finally drove away, the judge approached. "She might still try to appeal." "Maybe," I replied, "but this house isn't just mine anymore. It belongs to everyone who believes in what we built." He smiled. "That makes it untouchable." That night, after everyone left, I sat on the porch. The breeze was gentle, carrying echoes of children's laughter. I took out Raphael's letter and read it aloud. "Mom, if anything happens to me, don't let them erase what you built." I looked up at the sky and whispered, "I didn't erase it, my son. I made it shine." And in that quiet, I realized my revenge had a different name: legacy. 2 months had passed since the opening of the School of Hope. Children's laughter echoed through the yard, books lined the shelves, and Raphael's name lived on in every story read aloud. The house was alive again, but peace, I've learned, is always tested. One Tuesday afternoon, Ottavio arrived in a hurry. His face was grave. "Lucia, we need to talk." "What happened?" He set a paper on the table. "Anonymous complaint. You're being accused of embezzling donations." The room seemed to tilt for a second. "Again?" "Yes, but this time it's worse. The accusation went to the press." I sat down, hands trembling slightly. "It was her." Ottavio nodded. "Almost certainly." The details came from inside the court files. That night, the internet turned cruel. Comments filled the pages. Old fraud. Used her son's death for sympathy. Fake charity. The kind of hate that doesn't scream, it slices quietly. Selena was furious, slamming pots in the kitchen. That woman has no shame. It's not rage, Selena. It's desperation. When people run out of truth, they shout just to hear themselves. Still, the damage was done. Some volunteers pulled away. Parents grew nervous. Whispers began. Will the school close? I had no answers, only faith in what I'd built. 2 days later, a news crew showed up at the gate. Mrs. Navarro, would you like to comment on the accusations? I looked straight into the camera, gray hair tied back, face tired, but eyes steady. Yes, come in. I showed them everything. Receipts, donation records, the children studying in the yard. There's nothing hidden here, I said. Everything is accounted for. The reporter lowered her microphone. Aren't you afraid this will ruin your reputation? I don't worry about image. I worry about example. If I stay silent, I teach these children that injustice should be tolerated. That night, the story aired, and the reaction was nothing like I expected. Messages of support flooded in. People from other cities sent books, toys, and donations. The truth had grown wings, but the final proof came from a place I least expected. 3 days later, Judge Borges called an emergency hearing. Bianca had submitted forged bank statements as evidence for her anonymous complaint. Ottavio met me early that morning. It's over, Lucia. Completely. In court, Bianca was unrecognizable, pale, hollow-eyed. The judge spoke calmly. Investigations confirm the falsification of documents used in the complaint. Mrs. Bianca Figueiredo, you are hereby charged with defamation and identity fraud. The room fell silent. Bianca tried to speak, voice breaking. I just wanted what was mine. The judge's tone was firm, but not cruel. What was yours was never taken. What you tried to take was never yours. Tears streamed down her face, and in that moment, I understood. Her defeat wasn't my victory. It was simply the end of her lies. Ottavio leaned toward me. Say something if you'd like. I stood and spoke quietly. Your Honor, I don't want punishment. I want peace. I hope she finds hers, far from mine. He nodded. Let it be so. As I walked out, the hallway was full of people. Some applauded, others simply smiled. I didn't need either. Dignity doesn't make noise. That night, the news ran another story. Woman falsely accused of embezzlement cleared of all charges. Fraud suspect under investigation. The camera showed the school alive with children's laughter and me on the porch, holding Raphael's letter. In the following weeks, the project doubled in size. More volunteers, more books, more life. What had been born from grief was now a beacon of hope. One afternoon, Judge Borges visited the school. No robe, just a man, smiling quietly. I came to see the kind of justice no paper can record. I showed him the classrooms, the gardens, the wall of photos of Raphael. He paused and said, There are verdicts the law can't write. You've authored one of them. After he left, I sat on the porch again. The breeze was soft, and Raphael's letter lay open on the table. I ran my fingers over the ink and whispered, My son, they tried to take everything from me. But it was you who taught me how to stay. And in that silence, I felt it. The house, the name, the love, all still alive, all still mine. The months that followed were the calmest of my life. The house had become what it was always meant to be, a refuge, not of luxury, but of soul. Children's laughter filled the backyard, the smell of fresh cake drifted from the kitchen, and mothers chatted softly on Saturday afternoons. Every sound stitched together pieces of me I didn't know were still broken. The case was officially closed. Bianca's name vanished from the papers, and the school became a good news story. City Hall sent support, donations poured in, and Raphael's name began to appear in talks about education and resilience. I watched it all from my porch, calm and grateful. Life, at last, had found its rhythm again. Ottavio still came by every Friday. He brought reports, sipped coffee, and laughed at Selena's stories. "You've become a symbol of strength, Lucia," he said one afternoon. "I'm not a symbol, Doctor. I just didn't give up." He smiled. "That's exactly what makes you one." Sometimes I'd look at the gate and remember the day she threw me out. That same gate now stood open, filled with laughter and light. The place where I'd once been humiliated had become a doorway for hope. It felt as if God had given everything back, just in a kinder form. One morning, I received an unmarked envelope. Inside, a short letter. "Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself. B." I recognized the handwriting. Bianca. I read it twice. No anger, no bitterness, only a strange sense of peace. Because without her cruelty, I might never have discovered my strength. I folded the letter and placed it inside my Bible. Selena appeared in the doorway with 2 steaming cups. "You all right, Lucia?" "Yes, Selena. I think time finally learned to respect me." Outside, the mango tree bloomed again. Birds built new nests among its branches, singing without knowing they were healing me. I opened Raphael's letter one more time, ran my fingers over the faded ink and whispered, "My son, you taught me that victory isn't winning in court. It's being able to love after the war." At that moment, the wind rose gently, brushing through the curtains. And for a heartbeat, it felt as if the whole house were clapping. Not in noise, but in quiet, graceful applause. It's been 6 months since that day. Now I wake each morning to the sound of children reading aloud in the yard. Every laugh I hear feels like a prayer time decided to answer. The School of Hope keeps growing. Volunteers, teachers, and even a small library that bears my son's name, Rafael Navarro Library. Love teaches. Sometimes I close my eyes and remember that first day I was thrown out. The cold gate, the sting of being treated like an intruder. But when I open them now, I see flowers where the tears once fell. And I finally understand. I never lost a house. I found a purpose. Selena is still by my side. Ottavio has become part of the family. And every Friday at sunset, we light a candle by the window, not for mourning, but for gratitude. Because even the smallest light can chase away the shadows of injustice. One afternoon, a little girl from the school looked up at me and asked, "Mrs. Navarro, why didn't you ever give up?" I thought for a moment, then said, "Because giving up would have been like burying my son twice." She smiled and ran back to the others, and I realized every one of those children carries a piece of Raphael's story forward, a story born from pain, but ending in dignity. Now, when the breeze passes through the open windows and sunlight touches the walls, I know it was all worth it. I didn't need to shout to win. I just needed to stay. And if you, listening to this, have ever been wronged, betrayed, or forgotten, remember, time may seem deaf, but it always hears those who speak with their hearts. Silence is the voice of those who no longer need to prove anything. Now tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Have you ever had to fight to keep what was yours? Like this story, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to remember their own worth. Because justice, in the end, is just another form of love.